So picture this for a second. You're standing in this really quiet, idyllic village,
Okay.
and the air around you, it smells faintly of, like, fresh mint and wet riverstone.
That sounds incredibly peaceful.
Right. It is. You can hear this distant rhythmic sound of dwarven work chants echoing from a mine somewhere nearby. And maybe the steady turning of a heavy wooden water wheel.
Yeah, very grounding.
Exactly. It feels incredibly grounded. It feels like a genuine sanctuary, like a place where you could just finally rest. But then you tilt your head back.
Okay.
You look past the quaint rooftops, past the tree line, and you look straight up into the clouds. And right there, completely hidden in the stratosphere, floating suspended in the sky, is a massive celestial citadel.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, a literal kingdom held aloft, not by roaring engines, not by some anti-gravity technology, but by the sheer crushing willpower of living gods and mythic legends. So welcome to the planet Yaendarr.
That is just, it's a stunning visual to start with.
Yeah, it really sets the tone.
It does, and it perfectly encapsulates what makes this world so compelling, because Yaendarr is an absolute masterclass in extreme dualities.
Right.
I mean, on one hand, you have the dirt under your fingernails, the grit of raw survival, and on the other, you have the literal heavens physically hovering over your head, which is, completely inaccessible unless you are deemed worthy.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because we are going on a massive mapping expedition of this world today in our deep dive into these sources.
Yes, we have a lot of ground to cover.
We really do. Our mission is to explore the incredibly distinct extreme districts of Yaendarr. We're going to look at everything from a hyper-industrial cyberpunk metropolis to a sentient bioluminescent forest that actively judges your moral character.
Which is terrifying in its own right.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And we're going to contrast that grounded builder's town Pine Brooks with the celestial floating kingdom above it. And finally, we're going to dig into the tragic, devastating intergalactic conflict known as the Ikoan War, which it scarred this planet so deeply that they are basically running a desperate, endless hero recruitment program today.
Yeah, and that recruitment program is really the connective tissue of this entire deep dive.
How so?
Well, it's about asking how all of these contradictory environments, nature and machine, the humble laborer and the divine deity, absolute sanctuary and total apocalyptic war, how do they coexist on the exact same planetary sphere?
Right, because they don't seem like they belong on the same planet.
Exactly. It's a world built on profound contradictions. And to truly understand how a place like Pine Brooks functions as a sanctuary, we first need to look at the horrors people are fleeing from.
That makes sense.
So we have to start with the extremes.
Right. And looking at the source material, there really is no greater extreme than a place called Cosmosis, also known as the Neon Crown.
Oh, Cosmosis. Yeah, Cosmosis is a vertical titan of a city.
It sounds wild.
It is. It represents the absolute bleeding edge of technological capability in this universe. To give you some context on how it was built, it's the result of this massive collaboration between two very specific factions.
Okay.
You have the Ikoans, who we will discuss later as a highly militarized force, and you have the Unix people.
Wait, who are the because the sources mentioned they are technologically supreme, but what does that actually look like in practice?
So think of the Unix as the ultimate hyper-advanced intergalactic data hoarders.
Okay.
If you could imagine the most ruthless, brilliant minds of a Silicon Valley tech empire, but operating on a literal cosmic scale, that gets you pretty close.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they deal in information, advanced schematics, and technological superiority. So when you combine their intellect with the Ikoans' vast resources, the result is Cosmosis.
Which is this dizzying, hyper-industrial, cyberpunk metropolis.
Exactly.
The sources paint an incredible picture of this place. We were talking flying cars weaving through these dense traffic lanes in the sky, right?
Right.
And personal drone wings, hoverboards just blurring past towering holographic billboards. And there is essentially no natural sunlight in this city because the architecture is just so dense.
Yeah, the canopy of the city just blocks it all out.
So the entire place is illuminated by glaring neon and massive crystal light arrays. It basically operates as this massive galactic hub. Like if you need weapon trades, gem exchanges, or global media broadcasts, this is where you go.
It's the center of the universe for commerce.
And right in the dead center of all this neon chaos is the Colosseum.
Right. And the Colosseum is fascinating because it's not just, a sports arena. It's a heavily monetized multi-gaming platform.
Oh, so they are broadcasting them.
Yeah, they broadcast what they call the galactic games to the entire universe. It is the beating heart of Cosmosis's entertainment sector.
So it's basically the ultimate reality TV.
Basically, yeah. If you want instant wealth, eternal glory, and you are entirely willing to bleed for it, you go to the Colosseum. They host these massive war games, trials of combat, and brutal death matches.
And it's not just standard gladiator fights either. I was reading about these specific arenas they have called the Shadow Dungeon.
Oh, the Shadow Dungeons are wild.
What exactly is a Shadow Dungeon? Because it sounds like something straight out of a survival horror game.
It essentially is. The Shadow Dungeons are specialized, heavily augmented combat arenas designed to test the absolute limits of the fighters.
Okay, so they're modifying the terrain.
Exactly. You have different tiers of combatants operating in these spaces. The sources mention level 30 hunters and shadow swordsmen navigating these labyrinthine environments.
Right.
And the fighters themselves are incredibly diverse in their combat styles. For instance, you have warriors like the Atom Thunderer.
The Atom Thunderer. I mean, that sounds like a guy you do not want to meet in a dark alley. Or a brightly lit arena, for that matter.
No, you definitely don't. He wields a massive warhammer, relying on pure, brute kinetic force and elemental power.
Just smashing things.
Yeah. But then, in the very same arena, you might have someone like Hexus, who's classified as a dark magic user. Wait, so you have physical, technological brawlers going up against arcane magic users in a cyberpunk arena?
Precisely. It is a highly monetized, highly lethal entertainment complex.
That's insane.
The sheer spectacle of it is designed to keep the populace distracted and engaged. It represents the absolute pinnacle of technological and violent spectacle.
But here is where Cosmosis gets incredibly dark. Like, the city has a secret. And when I read this part in the notes, it completely broke my brain.
The two levels.
Yes. Cosmosis is actually split into two entirely distinct levels. You have the upper level, which is the Neon Anarchy, the flying cars, the Colosseum, the sky lanes.
Everything we just talked about.
Right. But then, beneath all of that, beneath a thick, physically impenetrable layer of industrial smog, you have the lower level, the slums.
Yeah, and the contrast is deliberately jarring.
Yeah.
Imagine dropping through that thick barrier of smog. The moment you breach it, all that vibrant neon light just dies completely.
It just disappears. The environment shifts into this harsh, rusted, sepia-toned nightmare. The atmospheric pollution is so dense that the air down there literally tastes of rust and metallic decay.
Ugh, that sounds awful.
It is a forgotten, choking wasteland where survival isn't about, glory in a coliseum.
Right.
It's based entirely on brutal street alliances and whatever scrap metal you can scavenge from the garbage dropped by the city above.
And here's the thing I want to push back on, because it sounds physically impossible. These two levels occupy the exact same vertical space.
Right.
They are literally stacked on top of each other.
Mm.
But the sources state that the upper level completely refuses to believe the slums actually exist. They think it's an urban legend.
Yes.
Meanwhile, the people who are freezing and starving in the slums believe the upper level, the neon utopia just above the smog, is just a bedtime story. A fairy tale to give children hope.
It is a wild concept.
The only physical connection between these two worlds are 4 hidden elevators.
Wow.
How is that possible? I mean, it's like a skyscraper where the billionaire in the penthouse refuses to believe the basement exists, and the janitor in the basement thinks the penthouse is just a religious concept.
That is, yeah.
How do you hide half a city from itself?
That skyscraper analogy is spot on. But to understand how it's possible, we have to look at the sociology and the engineering of the Ikoans and the eunuchs.
Okay.
They didn't just build a city, they built an architectural weapon.
A weapon.
Yes. The social stratification is so extreme, so vertically isolated, that reality itself becomes entirely subjective based on your altitude.
So the smog isn't just pollution, it's a tool.
Exactly. The smog layer acts as an intentional physical barrier to empathy and awareness.
Oh, wow.
If you live in the upper level, the eunuchs control your media, your education, your worldview. If you can't see the suffering below you and the media tells you it's just a myth, you never have to address it. Your conscience is clean.
That is incredibly messed up.
And on the flip side, if you are trapped in the lower level, the sheer impossibility of a neon utopia keeps you from organizing a meaningful rebellion.
Because you can't rebel against a fairy tale. You
Yeah.
can't overthrow a government you don't actually believe exists.
Right.
That is incredibly bleak.
It is the ultimate form of population control, and it really highlights the defining characteristic of Cosmosis. It is utterly artificial and profoundly isolated from the natural world.
Which is the perfect pivot at the absolute opposite extreme of Yaendarr. Because if osmosis is this rusted neon machine built on deception, then we have to journey to the other end of the spectrum to understand this planet. We have to talk about Elysium Forest.
Ah, yes. Also known as the planetary pulse.
Right.
Elysium is the antithesis of cosmosis in every conceivable way. Where cosmosis is a dead metal environment manufactured by technology, Elysium is profoundly alive, organic, and deeply interconnected.
Yeah, the source is described as being a bioluminescent woodland.
It is a massive, dense woodland,
Right.
but it's entirely bioluminescent. Even the shadows aren't really dark. Yeah, they glow in these slowly shifting, ethereal hues of pink, blue, and vivid green.
And it's not just pretty. The sources describe it as being sentient. And not just in a poetic, oh, the forest feels alive kind of way. It is literally conscious.
It has a mind of its own.
Right. The moment you step past the tree line, the forest knows you are there. The flora will physically turn on its stems to watch you walk by. Vines and massive roots will actively shift and move to either open a safe path for you or block you entirely,
It is an ecosystem that judges your intent.
which is wild.
It is. If you enter Elysium with reverence, if you are deemed worthy by whatever primal intelligence governs the woods, shimmering canopy fairies will appear and gently guide you through the safest routes.
But if you have bad intentions, if you are a poacher or a threat,
Then the forest becomes a weapon.
oh boy.
Those same fairies will actively mislead you, drawing you deeper into the darkest, most dangerous thickets, where the environment itself will ensure you don't leave.
And when you say the environment ensures you don't leave, we really need to talk about the fauna here.
Yeah.
Because Elysium is teeming with extraordinary and, frankly, terrifying life.
Absolutely.
Let's start with the Elysium dire cats. Now, normally when you hear dire cat in fantasy lore, you immediately picture a massive, hulking, saber-toothed beast the size of a horse, right?
You do, yeah.
But the Elysium dire cats possess a unique evolutionary defense and hunting mechanism. They have the magical ability to shrink their physical size.
Which is just terrifying.
How does that even work physically? Are they compressing their mass, or is it some kind of spatial magic? Because a massive predator suddenly becoming the size of a house cat breaks all the laws of physics.
It is entirely magical. It's an arcane density alteration that allows them to vanish instantly into the glowing underbrush.
Wow.
Think about the tactical advantage of this. They are incredibly lethal ambush predators.
Right.
You're walking through this glowing forest, actively scanning the tree line for a giant hulking monster. Your eyes are calibrated to look for a massive threat.
Because that's what you're afraid of.
Exactly. Meanwhile, a tiny, seemingly harmless, adorable cat slips silently right behind you, instantly reverts to its massive size, and that's the end of your journey. You never even saw it coming.
That is pure nightmare fuel. A giant monster that can turn into a stealth grenade.
It really is.
But as scary as the dire cats are, they aren't even the dominant force in Elysium. That title belongs to the wildlings. And the sources break down this entire terrifying evolutionary ladder of humanoid beings living in the woods.
Yes, the wildlings are a fascinating study in how biology adapts to a hyper-magical environment. They represent pure, unbridled adaptation.
Okay, let's break them down.
At the foundational level, you have the B-types.
What makes a B-type?
B-types are essentially plant-based, herbivore humanoids. They are intimately connected to the flora of the forest.
Like dryads or something.
Sort of, yeah. But because they are herbivores, they are largely prey for everything else in the woods. So their primary evolutionary defense mechanism is absolute, flawless camouflage.
Oh, that makes sense.
They can manipulate their cellular structure to seamlessly blend into the bioluminescent forest, disappearing completely to avoid predators.
Which they desperately need to do, because if you take one step up the food chain, you run into the A-types. And the A-types sound like the predators that keep the B-types up at night.
They absolutely are. The A-types are murderous, hypercarnivorous humanoids.
That's a terrifying combination of words.
Yeah, they are the apex predators of their specific regions. Biologically, they are built purely for the hunt. They possess unbelievable speed, so fast they are described as being almost impossible to track with the naked eye, and they have incredible tearing physical strength.
The notes say they hunt in packs and can wipe out entire settlements in minutes.
Just completely overrun them.
They operate on pure predatory instinct, no diplomacy, no reasoning, just hyper-carnivorous aggression.
Exactly. But here is the most terrifying part of Elysium's ecosystem.
Oh, there's more.
Oh, yes. You would think the A-types, with their blinding speed and pack-hunting tactics, would be the undisputed lords of the forest.
Naturally, yeah.
But they are not, because lurking above them on this twisted food chain are the S-types.
Okay, what could possibly hunt a pack of hyper-fast, carnivorous humanoids?
Shadow humanoid entities, the S-types. The sources classify them as hypercannibals.
Cyber-cannibals, meaning they don't just eat other species, they actively hunt their own kind and everything else.
Precisely. They are so incredibly dangerous, so volatile and consumed by an insatiable hunger that even the apex predator A-types are terrified of them.
Wow.
If the B-types are the forest's flora and the A-types are the forest's predatory instinct, the S-types represent the absolute darkest, most primal, corrupted aspect of the forest's magic. They are the nightmare that the monsters have nightmares about.
So we have this terrifying, beautiful, sentient forest filled with shrinking giant cats, plant people, speed demon carnivores, and shadow cannibals.
Right.
But why is all this magic concentrated here? Like, what is powering this ecosystem?
That is the big question.
The sources point to a specific location right at the center of the forest, in a place called the Moonpetal Glades, the Elixir Waters.
Yes, the Elixir Waters. They are the beating heart of Yaendarr.
Okay.
They are a series of sacred lakes that ripple with an intense, raw, white and blue energy. This water is the literal source of healing, cellular regeneration, rebirth, and in some extreme cases, resurrection.
And the craziest part is that every single drop of water on the entire planet of Yaendarr originates right here.
It's all connected.
It pools in these glowing magical lakes in the Moonpetal Glades. It gets blessed by the sentient consciousness of the forest, and then it filters out through the soil and the rivers, creating life wherever it goes. It is the planetary pulse.
A beautiful way to put it.
So my question to you, as we try to understand this world, is this. How does a single planet sustain cosmosis? A hyper-industrial cyber city that runs on rust, neon, and technological cruelty, right alongside a hyper-magical sentient forest filled with glowing water and shadow cannibals. How do those two realities not just destroy each other?
It comes down to a principle we can call environmental and magical segregation.
Segregation.
Yes. The magic of Elysium, specifically the Elixir Waters, acts as the planet's lifeblood. It is the defining, governing resource of Yaendarr. Wherever that water flows in its absolute purest form, near the source, nature completely dominates. Magic overrules technology.
Okay, that makes sense.
But as the water travels further away through the planet's crust, its magical potency naturally dilutes. This dilution creates geographical pockets where different types of civilization can actually take hold.
So cosmosis is likely built in a region where the Elixir influence is almost entirely gone.
Exactly. It's either built in a geographical dead zone where the water just doesn't reach, or the eunuchs have developed technology to actively suppress whatever trace magic remains in the soil, allowing their machinery to function without magical interference.
Wow, okay.
Cosmosis is the absence of Elixir. But to see what happens when human ingenuity perfectly harmonizes with the Elixir waters rather than rejecting it, we have to follow those streams out of the wild, dangerous forest and into the springlands.
Which brings us to the core of our deep dive.
Yeah.
Following those Elixir-infused rivers, you finally break out of the danger of the forest, you leave the shadow cannibals behind, and you arrive at this incredible safe haven, Pine Brooks.
Pine Brooks, the grounded heart of the world.
Right. Pine Brooks is a rural province, and it acts as a refuge for travelers, refugees, and humans who are desperately seeking an escape from the horrors of the wider galaxy.
A place to finally breathe.
The vibe here is just incredibly peaceful.
It's the first true settlement most travelers encounter after surviving the brutal wilderness of the planet. And it radiates a specific kind of warmth.
Yeah.
It isn't just a magical warmth from the environment, you know. It is a psychological warmth. It's the profound relief that washes over you when you realize you are finally truly safe.
You walk into this area and you see these beautiful residential clusters. There is Greenwake Village, which is basically a community of herbalists and gardeners.
Very pastoral.
They live in these gorgeous homes made of warm wood and river stone. And because the Elixir water is in the soil, their homes are wrapped in these thick, lush vines that bloom with flowers year-round.
Sounds lovely.
Then a little further down, you have Brookful Hamlet. This is a riverside district filled with fisherfolk and river mages, where the air constantly smells of fresh mint and moving water.
The river mages are a great detail.
And in the dead center of it all is Hearthgrove, which is this massive communal gathering place for sharing food, resting by the fire, and swapping stories. I mean, it sounds like an absolute untouchable paradise.
It is a sanctuary, without a doubt. But we have to be very careful not to confuse a sanctuary with, like, a vacation resort.
Right, it's not a holiday.
Exactly. Because Pine Brooks is not a lazy town. That is the crucial distinction that defines its culture. Pine Brooks is, at its absolute core, a builder's town.
A builder's town.
It is defined by industry, constant resource management, and grueling hard work. And nowhere is that more apparent than in a district called Construction Junction.
Oh man, Construction Junction is the loud, sweating, beating heart of this civilization. It is a massive industrial district filled with towering wooden scaffolding, massive lumber piles, and heavy stone blocks just being moved around.
It's constant motion.
If you stand there, you constantly hear the ringing of blacksmith hammers, the grinding of sawmills, the shouting of foremen, and their official town motto perfectly encapsulates the vibe. Grab a shovel, grab an axe, we have work to do.
It is an environment built on immediate integration through labor.
Immediate integration.
Yeah, when newcomers, refugees, or even broken travelers arrive in Pine Brooks, they aren't sent to a spa to relax and process their trauma.
Right, there's no therapy resort.
No, they are sent straight to the junction. They are put to work. The philosophy is brilliant in its pragmatism, really. You arrive with nothing, and you leave with calloused hands, tangible new skills, and a profound sense of belonging that can only be forged through shared, exhausting effort.
That makes a lot of sense.
You build the town, and the town builds you.
But here's where it gets really interesting. Because when you look closely at who is actually doing the physical labor in Construction Junction, it completely breaks your brain.
It's not what you'd expect.
Not at all. You have standard lumber yards and stone cutting yards, sure. But the people swinging the axes, the sources say you've got magical fays working the lines.
Right.
You've got actual Sasquatches hauling massive logs on their shoulders. And I am not making this up. You have the literal legend of Paul Bunyan alongside his giant blue ox working a standard shift at the lumberyard.
It's an incredible image, isn't it?
It's absurd. You've got legendary figures like Paul Bunyan and mythical cryptids like Sasquatch just doing manual labor.
Yep.
Usually in fantasy lore, a Sasquatch is a terrifying myth you hunt in the woods. Paul Bunyan is a demigod of folklore. Here, they're just clocking in at 9 a.m. to cut pine boards. It sounds less like a traditional fantasy town and more like a cosmic witness protection program for myths.
That's exactly what it feels like.
Why are they working regular jobs?
Well, a cosmic witness protection program for myths is a fantastic way to frame it. But let's look at the deep sociological implication of what Pine Brooks has achieved here.
Okay.
Pine Brooks represents the ultimate egalitarian society. It completely deconstructs the hierarchy of myth.
No, so.
In almost any other world, a legendary figure like Paul Bunyan or a mythical creature like a Sasquatch would be worshipped as a deity, feared as a monster, or isolated as an anomaly.
Right, they'd be put on a pedestal or hunted.
Exactly. But in Pine Brooks, your historical status or your mythical origin means absolutely nothing. Your value is inherently and exclusively tied to what you can tangibly contribute to the community today.
Right. The town doesn't care if you were a terrified human refugee from the slums of Cosmosis, a magical fae from the woods, or a legendary giant lumberjack from Earth folklore.
Everyone works.
The rule applies to everyone equally. If you can swing an axe, grab a shovel. We have a town to build and a winter to survive.
Precisely. It is the dignity of labor applied universally across all species and myths. And this relentless industry extends deep beneath the town as well.
Oh, right, the mines.
Because beneath the cozy homes and the bustling lumber yards of Pine Brooks, there is an ancient, expertly carved network of dwarven tunnels.
The dwarven mines. The sources say you can hear them singing these deep, resonant work chants day and night as they pull incredible resources from the earth.
It's the engine of the town.
They mine standard materials like iron and silver and precious gems. But most importantly, they mine arcane conductive metals.
Which is the technological backbone of their magical society.
How exactly does an arcane conductive metal differ from, say, a normal chunk of iron? What are they doing with it?
Think of normal metal as a conductor for electricity, like copper wire. Arcane conductive metal acts similarly, but for magical energy.
Oh, I see.
It can absorb, store, and channel raw arcane power without melting or degrading. The dwarves pull these specialized stones and metals up to the surface, where they are used extensively in glyphcraft.
Glyphcraft.
Yeah, they essentially carve magical circuitry into these stones. Their subterranean work is the engine that fuels the entire region's defenses and infrastructure.
And it's not just the miners who are collaborating across species lines.
Mm.
Their agricultural sector is just as integrated.
True.
If you walk down Farmer's Lane, you don't just see human farmers tending the fields. You see goblins and dwarves working side by side.
Which is very rare in fantasy.
Now, wait a minute. Traditionally, in almost every fantasy lore ever written, goblins and dwarves despise each other. They are mortal enemies. How are they cooperating here without killing each other in the fields?
It goes back to that culture of pragmatic survival we discussed at Construction Junction. In Pine Brook's, survival supersedes racial animosity.
Because they have to eat.
Exactly. The environment demands cooperation. When a severe winter or a monster attack threatens the entire food supply, you don't care if the person harvesting the wheat next to you is a goblin or a dwarf.
You just care that the wheat gets harvested.
Right. And the soil they're working with demands expertise. They're cultivating this incredibly fertile, elixir-nourished earth.
And the crops they grow are amazing because of that water. They have sweet root vegetables. They have these things called meadow fruits that the bakers use in all the local pastries in Hearthgrove. And they harvest bloom grain.
Bloom grain is fascinating.
It is literally a glowing cereal crop. They're doing magical farming.
It feeds the entire town, creating a robust, self-sustaining ecosystem. But Pine Brooks isn't just about raw survival and manual labor. They also have sophisticated culture and scholarship.
Yeah, let's talk about the fashion district, because you wouldn't expect a rugged, dirt-under-the-fingernails builder's town to have a vibrant high-fashion scene.
You really wouldn't.
But they have specialized tailors, weavers, and cloth mages, producing some wild garments. They weave beautiful cloaks out of Elysium silk that physically shimmer like moon petals.
Form and function.
They weave functional, lightweight armor out of razor grass. And they make these incredibly warm, patterned coats using the fur of the Elysium dire cats.
Which, as the sources explicitly and carefully note, are made from ethically sourced shed fur.
Yes. Very important detail. No shrinking giant ambush cats were harmed in the making of these coats. They just combed the woods for shedding season.
It shows that even in a place defined by hard labor and constant threats, there is a deep psychological need to appreciate the aesthetics of their unique environment.
It makes them human. Or, well, humanoid.
Right. Art and fashion are markers of a civilization that isn't just surviving, but thriving. And for the mind, they have established the Arcanium.
The Arcanium is this quiet, mystical hub. But what I love about it is that it's not some grand, elitist, ivory tower magical academy where wizards look down on the commoners.
It's very accessible.
It's a circular stone library, completely covered in ancient glowing glyphs that acts more like a public community center. Local apprentices go there to learn basic glyph craft. Scholars sit at wooden tables, hand-copying spell scrolls. And travelers go there to research the deadly biomes they are about to explore. Nature spirits just casually wander in and out of the open windows. It smells like old parchment, dust, and herbal ink. It's incredibly cozy.
It is cozy. It provides intellectual sanctuary. But we must be very careful not to paint Pine Brooks as a flawless utopia entirely free of hardship.
Oh, absolutely not.
Because the town is constantly, desperately battling its own geographical environment, especially on the extreme outskirts.
That's very true. The placement of Pine Brooks means they are dealing with some brutal environmental extremes right on their borders. Take the Northern Isles, for example.
Northern Isles are tough.
It's a cluster of islands connected by these heavy wooden bridges. And the reason it's so inhospitable is that there is a dormant frost node literally buried beneath the soil.
A magical freezer, essentially.
Yeah, it makes the entire area perpetually freezing cold. They have ice-aligned artisans and fisherfolk living out there who have to build their houses out of specialized frost-resistant timber just to keep from freezing to death in their sleep.
And the region is highly volatile. The historical records of the Everfrost Mountain area show a constant, exhausting struggle for basic survival.
That's relentless.
The people out there deal with devastating avalanches, and they face constant predatory attacks by cave hyenas, massive bears, and giant moose.
Giant moose.
Yeah, but the most significant existential threat to the Northern Isles comes from the Yeti attacks.
The Yeti attacks sound absolutely brutal. The timeline in the sources shows wave after wave of them coming down from the mountains. Sometimes the town's defenses hold and they win, but sometimes they lose badly.
Very badly.
And these attacks aren't just isolated combat incidents. They trigger massive cascading resource crises for the whole town.
Exactly. Warfare disrupts supply lines.
There was one specific event detailed in the sources where someone made a catastrophic error and sold off all the town's surplus resources right before a massive cold front and a snowstorm hit.
Just terrible timing.
This triggered a severe famine. The town was literally starving and freezing, barricaded in their homes, desperately waiting for emergency drop shipments just to survive the week.
They were on the brink.
They had to frantically establish a new army camp in the snow and recruit new soldiers just to hunt the beasts and secure the perimeter. It sounds like a logistical nightmare.
It highlights the extreme precariousness of their existence. Sanctuary is not a guarantee. It is a daily maintenance task. And the coastal lines face similar relentless threats.
Right, the coast is no safer.
The town established a vital resource gathering station and iron mines on the coast, but they are constantly battered by pirate waves.
It's just endless.
It's this exhausting cycle. They expand the border, a pirate attack burns half of it down, they rebuild the docks, search for new iron veins to forge weapons, fight off another wave of pirates, and repeat.
So even though Pine Brooks is this beautiful, mint-scented sanctuary in the center, the people on the edges have to fight tooth and nail every single day to keep it that way.
It's a hard-won piece.
It is a town forged by sheer grit and blood. But there's one more district of the town we have to mention, and it is highly, highly secure. It's called Westbrooks.
Westbrooks is a unique anomaly within the town. It is essentially a sanctuary within a sanctuary, specifically designed and isolated for the Unix people.
Wait, the Unix? The same hyper-advanced Silicon Valley tech bro data hoarders who helped build the dystopian, smog-choked, cyberpunk city of Cosmosis.
The very same.
What are they doing in a rustic builder's town?
Well, in Westbrooks, they aren't building neon slums or gladiator arenas. They are operating a vast, heavily shielded repository of intergalactic knowledge.
Okay, what kind of knowledge?
It houses something called the Intergalactic Registry System. Because the Unix are the undisputed pioneers of technology and surveillance in this universe, they have gathered an immense, dangerous amount of sensitive cosmic data.
Like what?
Think of it like a galactic seed vault, but instead of seeds, it holds the secrets, coordinates, and weaknesses of entire civilizations.
So they chose Pine Brooks because it's off the grid. It's a quiet place to hide the universe's most important server farm.
Exactly. But because of the nature of the information they possess, Westbrooks is heavily secluded from the rest of the town and protected by strict advanced security measures.
I imagine it's heavily guarded.
Oh, heavily. It is the intellectual fortress of the Springlands.
Okay, so let's zoom out and look at this incredible town we've just mapped. You have goblins and dwarves farming glowing grain together. You have dwarven miners carving magical circuitry into rocks underground.
Right.
You have legendary lumberjacks fighting off Yeti invasions in the freezing mountains. And you have hyper-advanced tech hoarders guarding intergalactic secrets behind secure walls.
It's quite the melting pot.
It is profoundly grounded in dirt, sweat, and survival. And remember that extreme duality we talked about at the very beginning of the deep dive.
The floating kingdom.
Yes, because while this grueling, muddy labor is happening on the ground, you just have to look up through the clouds to see the other half of Pine Brooks.
The floating kingdom of Pinebrook, the celestial citadel suspended thousands of feet in the air, directly above the town's rooftops.
It is literally a majestic kingdom in the clouds. And the physical mechanism of how it stays up there is mind-bending. Because we know they have technology in this world. We saw it in Cosmosis with the flying cars and hoverboards.
But they don't use it here.
Right. The floating kingdom doesn't use anti-gravity engines. The sources state it floats purely because of the crushing arcane pressure generated by the beings who live inside it.
This is one of the most fascinating concepts of magical physics in the entire Yaendarr lore.
How does it actually work?
Let's break down how arcane pressure actually functions. The kingdom is sustained entirely by the sheer density of extreme power. The heroes, legends, gods, and mythic avatars who reside within its walls radiate so much ambient arcane energy that it creates a physical repulsive force field.
Wait, so gravity just gives up?
Think of it like two identical magnetic poles pushing apart. The mass of the planet generates gravity pulling down, but the concentrated magical aura of the kingdom's inhabitants generates an opposing kinetic force pushing down against the planet.
It just pushes back.
It literally repels the Earth. It is gravity submitting to sheer arcane authority.
That is such a wild, brilliant concept. Their sheer existence acts as a repulsor lift. But that implies a terrifying architectural vulnerability.
Oh, you caught that.
If it requires their presence to float, what happens if they leave? If all those powerful beings were ever to evacuate, or if they were killed?
The physics equation would instantly fail.
Instantly.
Yes, the entire kingdom would lose its buoyancy in a split second and plummet straight down, crashing with apocalyptic force into the dirt of Pine Brook's town below.
So the safety of the town on the ground relies on the gods staying in their penthouses in the sky.
Exactly. It makes the architecture itself conditional. It relies on the continuous, unbroken presence of power. And this is exactly why entry to the kingdom is strictly restricted.
Because they can't afford to have that balance disrupted.
Right. Ordinary travelers, merchants, or basic fighters cannot access it. In fact, the magic is so potent that if the kingdom's defense wards deem you unworthy of entry, it is completely invisible to you.
Completely invisible.
Yes. You could stand in the center of Hearthgrove, look right up at the coordinates, and see nothing but empty blue sky and cirrus clouds.
But if you are worthy, what you see when you arrive is unbelievable. The kingdom is divided into these majestic, sweeping districts.
It's beautiful.
First, you have the Glendale district, which is ruled by a figure named King Red. This is kind of the civilian heart of the floating city.
Day-to-day life.
Yeah. You have their own version of a coliseum, a massive winery, bakery smelling of fresh bread, and bustling farmers markets. And casually walking around buying fruit, you might see the literal Joan of Arc or Robin Hood just hanging out.
Because the floating kingdom serves as a nexus point, a gathering place for mythic figures pulled across different timelines and dimensions.
Like a magnet for heroes.
Exactly. This pooling of historical and mythic talent is most evident when you visit the kingdom's Capitol building, specifically the Hall of the Generals.
The Hall of the Generals is like someone did a fantasy draft of history's greatest tactical minds and put them all in one boardroom.
It really is.
The sources list who is in there. You have Mulan, Sun Tzu, Julius Caesar, Spartacus, and King Leonidas all in one place.
A staggering amount of intellect.
And their job is managing the kingdom's army expansion and dealing with the wildling threats and barbarian incursions on the outskirts of the town below. Imagine the strategic arguments in that room.
It would be intense.
Sun Tzu arguing for deception while Leonidas just wants to form a phalanx at a choke point.
The combined tactical intellect in that single hall is it's staggering. They're analyzing planetary threats with thousands of years of combined military experience.
Right.
But if you want to move away from tactical intellect and see raw, unadulterated power, you go to Divinity Square.
Divinity Square is where things get truly dangerously chaotic. Because this is where you find a place called the Bar of the Gods.
Yes.
And it is exactly what it sounds like. It's a local, dimly lit dive bar populated by actual, literal deities. You've got the Norse god Loki hanging out in the corner with a guy named Damien.
Which we'll get to Damien later.
Yeah, we will. You got Heracles from Greek myth, Sun Wukong, the legendary Monkey King, and Thor all just sitting around having drinks.
And as you can imagine, putting that much concentrated divine ego, immense physical strength, and alcohol in one single room inevitably leads to friction.
Oh, absolutely. The records mention a massive showdown at the bar between Heracles and Thor.
Yeah.
Just a casual, catastrophic brawl between the Norse god of thunder and the strongest demigod in Greek mythology over, like, a spilled drink or a boast.
The collateral damage must be insane.
Right. They even take their beefs to the Colosseum to settle them. There's a recorded match of Heracles fighting Sun Wukong. The property damage from these guys just blowing off steam must be astronomical. Who pays for the repairs when Thor throws a hammer through a wall?
Well, it's the cost of doing business when your city's foundation is built on their power. They have to let them vent.
I guess.
And right next to this divine chaos, you have an entirely different kind of power concentrated in the Cursed Manor.
The Cursed Manor is so bizarre to me. It is a massive 3-story building that houses the darkest, most traditionally evil entities in the kingdom. But it's organized like a mundane apartment complex.
Just a normal block of flats.
Yeah. The first floor is entirely undead. Skeletons, ghouls, liches. The second floor is dedicated to demons. And the third floor is vampires, just living stacked on top of each other in the floating city.
Which speaks volumes about the inclusivity of the kingdom's power requirement. Remember the physics of arcane pressure we discussed.
Right, the repelling force.
The spell that holds the kingdom up doesn't discriminate based on morality or alignment. A powerful ancient vampire generates just as much upward arcane lift as a divine hero or a holy paladin. Power is power.
That is deeply pragmatic.
They also have the Phantasm District, which is dedicated to incredibly powerful ancient bloodlines.
Like the Phantasm District. This is where you find the werewolf bloodlines, the dark elves, the dragonians, the orcs, and the thunders. It's a massive concentration of immense racial power.
It is.
So let's look at this setup objectively. You have a hall of generals with Sun Tzu and Leonidas running your military. You have a bar full of literal gods like Thor and the Monkey King. You have manors full of demons and entire districts full of dragons.
All in one floating city.
So I have to ask the obvious question that I think everyone listening is screaming at their devices right now. If your local neighborhood defense force consists of the Monkey King, the God of Thunder, and Julius Caesar, what could possibly be so terrifying that the kingdom has initiated a massive, desperate recruitment drive for new heroes? What are they afraid of?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it reveals a deep, underlying anxiety, a profound generational trauma within the floating kingdom.
Generational trauma.
Yes. Yes, they have gods. Yes, they have legendary armies. But the sources are clear. They are actively, aggressively seeking new individuals with diverse skill sets.
They're constantly recruiting.
They are pulling recruits from across dimensions, putting them through rigorous physical and mental training, and equipping them with highly advanced technology. Why? Because power is fragile. And more importantly, because the leaders of this kingdom remember the past. They are stockpiling heroes because they are anticipating the inevitable return of intergalactic threats. To truly understand this paranoid level of preparation, we have to look at the deep scars of Yaendarr's history.
And that takes us to the tragic, heartbreaking story of Celestria. Because the reason this floating kingdom is so paranoid, the reason they need so many heroes, is deeply rooted in a devastating conflict called the Ikoan War.
Exactly. To understand the war, we have to understand the origin. Celestria was a vast, ethereal entity, a being of immense, almost incomprehensible cosmic power who traversed the ethereal star system.
By goddess.
Very much so. When she discovered the wild, vibrant planet of Yaendarr eons ago, she claimed it as her domain. She essentially became the mother goddess of the planet, shaping its ecosystems and nurturing its magic, like the Elixir waters we discussed earlier.
And during her time, quietly watching over Yaendarr, acting as its guardian, she encounters two refugees who have crash-landed on the planet. Two brothers named Dante and Milo.
Ah, Dante and Milo. They have a fascinating, tragic background that sets everything in motion.
Tell me about them.
They are brothers, but they are entirely different species. They come from a planet called Krilkoa, which has a very unique, somewhat disturbing biological system. On Krilkoa, birth rate is entirely random.
Wait, random? How does that work?
Think of it like a cosmic cuckoo bird situation or an extreme planetary scale version of a DNA sorting hat.
Oh, wow.
A family could give birth to a child, and the child's species is randomized by the planet's unique genetic environment. Once born, the children are immediately separated from their parents and sorted to be raised exclusively among their own specific biological kind.
So you could have a human mother who gives birth to an elf, and the elf is taken away to live in the elf district forever.
Exactly.
That is incredibly alienating.
Right.
And it explains Dante and Milo, because Dante was born a Rongolian. Rongolians are a fierce barbarian race known for having the highest fighting IQ in the galaxy, coupled with supreme brute physical strength.
He's a powerhouse.
Plus, Dante has a specific mutation. He's a pyrokinetic. He can shoot blinding, highly destructive solar beams directly from his eyes.
Like a fantasy superhero.
Right. Milo, his brother, on the other hand, was born a Krillian. The Krillians are a physically frail but mentally supreme psychic race. Milo is an Omega-level telepath, possessing vast, overwhelming mental abilities.
Exactly. A barbarian brute who shoots lasers from his eyes and a supreme psychic. Despite being entirely different species and being separated at birth by Krilkoa's systemic sorting, they somehow found each other and formed a bond.
Which is really beautiful, honestly.
It is. But their lives on Krilkoa were utterly destroyed when they were framed for horrific crime.
The murder of their own mother.
Yes. And they were framed by a ruthless, incredibly powerful political faction known as the Ikoans.
Wait, the same Ikoans from Cosmosis?
The exact same Ikoans who, as we discussed earlier, helped the Unix build the dystopian, neon-choked city of Cosmosis.
Oh, man.
The Ikoans are highly militarized, technologically supreme, and absolutely relentless.
Dante and Milo were forced to flee their home planet to escape execution. They became intergalactic fugitives, desperately searching the stars for a safe harbor. By sheer chance, their ship crash-landed on Yaendarr.
They thought they were alone.
They were expecting to hide in the dirt and just survive. Instead, they met the ethereal goddess, Celestria. And Celestria, being the benevolent, nurturing entity she was, didn't turn them away. She didn't hand them over to the authorities.
No, she adopted them.
She adopted them. She offered them sanctuary.
But the Ikoans do not forgive, and they do not let things go. They possess the technology to track Dante and Milo's ship across the galaxy.
They hunted them down.
And when they finally located them on the magical planet of Yaendarr, they didn't just send a stealth bounty hunter or an assassin. The Ikoans launched a full-scale, apocalyptic, intergalactic military assault on the entire planet. They'd employed their elite fugitive retrieval unit.
The Ikoan War was catastrophic. The sources detail how the fighting was so massive, so sprawling, that it poured right out of the forests and into the streets of Cosmosis.
The whole world was a battlefield.
You had advanced Ikoan warships tearing apart the neon skylanes, deploying troops, fighting against the magical and physical defenders of Yaendarr in the rusted slums.
It is the ultimate heartbreaking irony of this planet's history. A planet that defined itself by offering sanctuary to the broken and the lost was almost completely annihilated because it offered sanctuary.
Celestria, who the records indicate was actually pregnant at the time, was forced to step in to defend her adopted sons and her world. She engaged the Ikoan Fugitive Retrieval Unit directly.
Just her against the fleet.
Now just picture the visual scale of that battle. A glowing, ethereal mother goddess fighting off a technologically supreme armada of warships in the atmosphere.
The sheer magical output required for that defense is staggering. And she wins. Celestria taps into her deepest reserves of power and unleashes a final, devastating, planet-wide attack that shatters the Ikoan fleet's formation.
Just broke them.
The armada is broken, they suffer massive casualties, and they are forced to retreat into deep space. Yaendarr is saved, but the cost was absolute.
Yeah.
During the climax of the battle, Celestria was mortally wounded by the Ikoan weaponry.
As she lay dying on the battlefield, knowing her physical form is failing, she performs one final, desperate act of love and preservation.
What does she do?
She uses her fading magic to transfer a fraction of her raw, ethereal essence directly into Milo's mind, utilizing his supreme, Krillian telepathic abilities to act as a living vault for a piece of her soul. And then Celestria died.
The aftermath of this war completely shattered the family. Dante and Milo are left with the crushing guilt that their presence killed their adopted mother.
The weight of that must be unbearable.
And this tragedy leads directly to one of the most complex, tragic post-war encounters in the planet's lore, because, as we mentioned, Celestria was pregnant. She had a biological son named Lycaios.
And Lycaios' timeline, as detailed in the sources, is just a chaotic descent into pure trauma. We don't have time to cover every detail, but just to summarize what this being went through.
It's a lot.
Lycaios was born a Phara. A Phara is a highly adaptable being capable of taking on incredibly powerful physical forms depending on their environment and stress levels. He has a shimmering lunar form, a dark shadow form, a divine form, and eventually, due to trauma, an apex beastly form.
His life is a series of brutal survival scenarios.
He explores the Elysium forest we talked about earlier. He actually gets killed by one of those shrinking dire cats, gets resurrected by his mother's lingering spirit, lives peacefully for a time with the camouflaged B-type wildlings, learns their skills, only to watch his entire adopted village get slaughtered in minutes by a pack of the hyper-carnivorous A-types.
Oh, it's just nonstop suffering.
He gets kidnapped by them, fights their apex leader. His stress forces him to mutate into a beastly monster. He's hunted by the S-type shadow cannibals. I mean, the guy's life is a horror movie.
And that is all before he's captured by a faction of humans from Earth who run unspeakable, agonizing psychological and physical experiments on him.
Oh, right, the humans.
These experiments are so severe that they literally split his psyche in two, violently extracting his darker impulses and creating a completely separate physical entity named Damien.
Wait, Damien. Is that the same Damien we saw earlier drinking with the god Loki at the Bar of the Gods in the Floating Kingdom?
The very same. His trauma birthed the new being who now hangs out with gods.
That is wild. So after surviving all of this immense trauma, Lycaios manages to escape and finally crash lands a ship back on his home planet of Yaendarr. But his mind is completely broken. He has severe amnesia.
He doesn't know who he is.
He has no idea who he is, who his mother was, or where he is. He lands in the dense woodlands on the outskirts of Pine Brooks, terrified, confused, and lost.
And who is guarding those woodlands? Dante, the adopted son of Celestria.
Oh, no.
Dante is on high alert. He is deeply scarred by the Ikoan War. He has spent years waiting for the Ikoans to return. He sees this incredibly powerful, strange Pharaoh crash into the forest, completely mistakes Lycaios for an advanced scout, a poacher, or an Ikoan invader, and he immediately attacks him.
The sources describe this fight. Dante just opens fire, blasting a blinding solar beam from his eyes. Lycaios, acting on pure survival instinct, shifts into his shimmering silver lunar form and dodges it. And they just start tearing the forest apart, just destroying everything around them. Trees are toppling, the earth is trembling. It is a massive, tragic clash between the adopted son and the biological son of Celestria, neither knowing who the other is. They are fighting to the death over a misunderstanding fueled by grief.
But before they can land a killing blow, Milo intervenes. Milo, sensing the massive energy spikes, uses his Krillian telepathy.
Thus, psychic brother.
He reaches across the distance, forces his way into both of their minds, and paralyzes them to stop the fight. And in that moment of mental contact, because Milo still holds that precious fraction of Celestria's essence in his mind, he instantly recognizes the unique biological signature of Lycaios' species.
He figures it out.
He realizes exactly who he is looking at.
Milo's mind flashes back to the horrific war, to Celestria's death. He realizes this is her lost son. And he makes a fateful decision. He establishes a deep, direct mental link with Lycaios to explain the truth, to show him who his mother was, to tell him he is home.
But Milo makes a tragic miscalculation.
What happens?
He fails to account for the fragility of Lycaios' mind. Lycaios' psyche was already stretched to the breaking point from the amnesia, the decades of wildling trauma, the agonizing human experiments that literally tore his soul in half.
It's too much.
When Milo drops the raw, immense psychic weight of Celestria's memory into his brain, it is too much. The mental link completely and violently shatters Lycaios' remaining memory and identity.
It breaks him entirely.
Yeah.
Lycaios, as an identity, essentially dies in that moment in the dirt of the forest. And from the shattered, blank slate of his psyche, a completely new persona is born. Jack Lobius.
Jack Lobius.
Jack wakes up with absolutely no memory of being Lycaios, no memory of his horrific past, and no memory of Celestria. Dante and Milo, consumed by overwhelming guilt for what they did to their mother's son, take Jack in. They vow to protect him, and they give him a permanent home in the sanctuary of Pine Brooks.
But there is a lingering, fascinating side effect to this tragedy. Because Jack Lobius is now living permanently in the Springlands of Pine Brooks, his Pharaoh powers are severely restricted.
Right, the sources note this. The specific environment of the Springlands somehow suppresses his lunar abilities. Why would that happen?
Well, if we theorize based on the mechanics of the world, it likely has to do with the elixir waters in the soil. The elixir water is a planetary grounding magic meant for healing and earthly growth.
Right.
Jack's lunar form draws on cosmic celestial energy. The intense concentration of planetary earth magic in Pine Brooks likely acts as an opposing frequency, dampening his connection to the cosmos.
So the sanctuary is actually holding him back.
He can still transform into his shadow or divine forms, and the records show him fighting alongside Dante. They are documented fighting rogue trolls and furies on the borders together, but his absolute peak cosmic energy is diminished. He is a powerhouse restricted by the very sanctuary that keeps him safe.
What a profound tragedy. And what a brilliant exploration of generational trauma. The legacy of Celestria's sacrifice binds Dante, Milo, and Jack Lobius together forever.
It does.
But as you look at it, it also binds the entire planet.
So what does this all mean? The Ikoan War proved, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that no matter how well you hide, no matter how deeply you bury yourselves in a magical forest, no matter how peaceful your woods smell of mint and riverstone, the universe will always come knocking.
It always does.
The Ikoans breached the sky. The humans breached Lycaios' mind. The threat is always, always there.
And what's fascinating here is that this brings our deep dive full circle. That pervasive historical fear is exactly why the floating kingdom of Pinebrook exists as a shield over the town. That is why they will never, ever stop recruiting heroes.
It's all about defense. They aren't training warriors in the Colosseum for sport or vanity, you know. They are desperately building a bulwark against the next intergalactic armada.
The gods drinking in the bar, the brilliant generals arguing in the hall, the heroes bleeding and training in the Colosseum. They're all just waiting for the sky to tear open again.
Precisely. They are a civilization holding its breath.
So, We have covered an unbelievable amount of ground today. We started by exploring the horrific rusted slums and the blinding neon skylanes of Cosmosis, where the upper and lower classes are manipulated into believing the other is a myth.
A literal divided city.
We ventured into the terrifying bioluminescent beauty of Elysium Forest, unpacking the evolutionary arms race of plant people, speed demon carnivores, and shadow cannibals, all to find the glowing source of life, the Elixir waters.
The heartbeat of the planet.
We followed that water down to Pine Brooks, where we explored a society that deconstructs myth, where legendary giants swing axes in the lumber yards and dwarves carve magical circuitry underground while battling yetis and pirates on the borders.
The ultimate grounded town.
And finally, we looked up into the clouds to find a kingdom held aloft purely by the willpower of gods, all of it shadowed by the heartbreaking sacrifice of an ethereal mother and the brutal scars of the Ikoan War.
It is a profound, beautifully complex ecosystem of survival, magic, trauma, and memory. But before we sign off, I want to leave you with a thought to mull over, building on the architectural reality of the Kingdom of Pinebrook.
Okay, let's hear it.
We established that the entire celestial citadel is held aloft entirely by the combined arcane resonance, the willpower of the powerful heroes who live there. It literally floats on their continued presence and their resolve to protect the world below.
Right.
So what happens to a society that physically, catastrophically collapses the absolute moment its strongest protectors lose their will to stay? In a world terrified of another Ikoan invasion, a world that is desperately and constantly recruiting new heroes just to maintain its shield, what happens if one day the trauma is simply too much? What happens if the generals get tired, the gods get bored, and one day no one answers the recruitment call? If they simply decide to walk away and abandon their posts, gravity would finally win.
That is an incredibly terrifying image to leave on. The heavens literally crashing into the dirt because the heroes just got tired. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the source material. We'll catch you on the next one. Keep looking up.